The fluorescent lights of the Walgreens on Route 66 hummed their usual tired song as Sarah Mitchell stood at the pharmacy counter, her 7-year-old daughter Emma clinging to her worn jacket. It was 8:47 p.m. on a Thursday, and the store was nearly empty except for a few late-night shoppers shuffling through the aisles. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she counted the crumpled bills and loose change she had scraped together from the bottom of her purse, the glove compartment of her 2003 Honda Civic, and the old coffee can she kept hidden in the kitchen cabinet. $32.91. That was everything she had until her paycheck came through on Monday, still 4 long days away. Emma had been running a fever for 3 days now. What started as a simple cold had turned into something worse, something that kept her daughter awake at night, coughing until her small body shook. The free clinic doctor had been clear. Bacterial infection, needs antibiotics, cannot wait. The pharmacist, a middle-aged woman named Linda who had seen Sarah come in many times before, placed the white paper bag on the counter with a sympathetic smile that somehow made everything worse. $33 even. Sarah stared at the numbers on the register screen, then back at her pile of money. She counted again, slower this time, hoping somehow the math would change. Bills first, a 20, a 10, 2 ones. Then the quarters, dimes, nickels. She even separated the pennies into small towers of 10. $32.91. 9 cents short. Just 9 cents between her daughter and the medicine that would break the fever, stop the cough, make everything better. 9 cents that might as well have been $900. Behind her, she heard the door chime as someone entered the store. Heavy footsteps, the jingle of chains, the creak of leather. Sarah did not turn around. She was too focused on the impossible mathematics of her situation, too consumed by the rising panic in her chest. Linda's eyes flickered behind Sarah, widening slightly, before returning to the desperate mother in front of her. "Sarah, I can hold it until tomorrow if you can come back with—" "No," Sarah interrupted, her voice cracking. "She works tomorrow. I work a double. We need it tonight." She looked down at Emma, whose glassy eyes and flushed cheeks told the whole story. "Please, is there anything? Can I return something I bought last week? Can I—" The footsteps stopped directly behind them. Sarah could smell motor oil and cigarette smoke, could feel a presence that seemed to take up more space than one person should. From the corner of her eye, she saw black leather, silver chains, and patches she recognized immediately. Hell's Angels. The motorcycle club had a chapter right outside Phoenix, and everyone knew to keep their distance. Her mother instinct kicked in. She pulled Emma closer, positioning herself between her daughter and whoever was standing behind them. The man was enormous, 6'4" at least, with a gray beard that reached his chest and arms covered in tattoos that told stories Sarah could not even begin to read. His leather vest bore patches and pins, a whole history written in symbols and words she did not understand. His hands were scarred and massive, hands that looked like they had built things and broken things in equal measure. He did not say anything at first, just stood there, looking at the mother and daughter, then at the pathetic pile of money on the counter, then at the white paper bag with its promise of relief and healing. Sarah's heart hammered. She had heard stories. Everyone in Phoenix had heard stories about the Hells Angels, about bar fights and territory disputes, about a world that existed parallel to hers but never touched it except in whispers and warnings. Emma coughed, a wet, rattling sound that seemed too big for her small body. The sound seemed to break whatever calculation was happening behind the biker's dark eyes. Without a word, he reached into his pocket. Sarah instinctively stepped back, pulling Emma with her, ready to grab her daughter and run if she needed to. But the man's hand emerged holding not a weapon but a fistful of change. Quarters, dimes, nickels, pennies, all mixed together, the kind of loose change that accumulates in pockets and cup holder over weeks of riding. He stepped forward, his boots heavy on the pharmacy floor, and extended his scarred hand toward Sarah's open palm. Their eyes met for just a moment, his expression unreadable behind the beard and the hardness that came from a life she could not imagine. Then he poured the change into her hand. It was cold and heavy, far more than 9 cents. Maybe $2 or $3 worth, accumulated from gas stations and diners and truck stops across the desert Southwest. Sarah stood frozen, staring at the pile of coins now mixing with her own meager collection. The weight of them felt like more than just metal. It felt like judgment, like pity, like everything she had tried so hard to avoid. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "But I only need 9 cents. I can't take." The biker had already turned away, his boots echoing toward the door. He did not look back, did not wait for gratitude or explanation, just pushed through the glass door into the Phoenix night, where she could see through the window his massive motorcycle waiting under the parking lot lights. Linda quickly counted out the medication cost, accepted the payment, and handed Sarah the white bag with a smile that held relief and something else. Kindness, maybe. Understanding. As Sarah walked toward her car, Emma's hot hand in hers, she felt the tears finally come. Not tears of relief, but something deeper, something that hurt worse than the poverty itself. Shame. The kind that burns in your chest and makes you wonder how you got here. How a college-educated woman with a business degree ends up 9 cents short for her daughter's medicine. 3 years ago, she had been someone different. Sarah Mitchell, marketing coordinator at a tech startup in Scottsdale, engaged to David Chun, a software engineer with stock options and a bright future. They had planned a wedding, talked about buying a house in Tempe, discussed names for the children they would have. Then Emma arrived earlier than planned, and David's bright future suddenly did not include a family. The ring came off, the apartment lease ended, and Sarah found herself alone with a newborn and a job that disappeared when the startup folded 6 months later. The jobs that followed paid less each time. Marketing coordinator became administrative assistant, became receptionist, became waitress at the Desert Rose Diner on the night shift, where the tips barely covered daycare and rent on the one-bedroom apartment in the rough part of town. She buckled Emma into the booster seat she had bought at a yard sale, the fabric stained and torn but still safe according to the standards she had frantically Googled. Emma's fever-glazed eyes looked up at her. "Mommy, who was that man?" "Just someone being kind, baby. Sometimes strangers surprise us." But as Sarah drove through the dark Phoenix streets, past the closed shops and flickering neon signs, she could not shake the feeling. Not gratitude, but something uglier. Resentment. Anger. How had her life become the kind of story where a biker's pocket change made the difference between medicine and no medicine? When had she become the charity case, the cautionary tale, the woman people felt sorry for at pharmacy counters? Tomorrow she would work her double shift, 14 hours on her feet, smiling at customers who did not see her, carrying plates and refilling coffee cups and pretending everything was fine. But tonight, driving home with medicine that cost 9 cents she did not have, Sarah Mitchell felt the full weight of how far she had fallen. The medicine worked quickly. By Saturday morning, Emma's fever had broken, and the color had returned to her cheeks. Sarah watched her daughter play with her worn stuffed rabbit on the living room floor, relief washing over her like a wave. But the shame lingered. She could not stop thinking about the biker's hand, the weight of those coins, the look in his eyes that she could not quite decipher. Pity? Compassion? Or just the automatic response of someone who had seen desperation before and knew what it looked like? Sarah was wiping down tables at the Desert Rose Diner during the Sunday lunch rush when she saw him again. He walked through the door at exactly 1:15 p.m., his leather vest and chains drawing immediate attention from the other customers. Several families with children glanced nervously toward the exit. An older couple in the corner booth visibly stiffened. Sarah's hands froze on the table she was cleaning. Her heart began to race, that same instinctive fear from the pharmacy returning. Had he come looking for her? Did he want something in return? Had those 9 cents come with strings attached? The biker scanned the diner until his eyes landed on her. Recognition flickered across his weathered face. He moved toward a booth in her section, his massive frame making the red vinyl seat look small as he slid in. Sarah had no choice but to approach. Her name tag felt suddenly heavy, advertising her identity to someone who had already seen her at her lowest. She grabbed a menu and walked over, her professional smile feeling like a mask made of glass. "Coffee," he said simply, his voice rough like gravel under tires. "Black." As she poured, her hands shook slightly, and she hated herself for it. Hated that this man had the power to make her nervous in her own workplace. Hated that she owed him anything. Hated the whole situation. "You work here," he stated, not a question. "Yes." Sarah set the coffee pot down. "Look, about the other night, I really appreciate what you did, but your daughter doing better?" The question caught her off guard. There was no menace in it, no expectation. Just genuine concern from someone who looked like he should not care about anything beyond his next ride. "She is. The antibiotics worked." "Thank you." He nodded, took a sip of his coffee, and pulled out a worn leather wallet from his vest pocket. If you are watching this and rooting for Sarah like I am, take a second and subscribe to the channel. Because what happens next, nobody could have predicted. The biker pulled out not money, but a business card. Faded, creased, but still readable. Mitchell's Custom Metalworks. Below it, a phone number with a Phoenix area code. "Your last name, Mitchell?" Sarah's blood went cold. "Yes." "Why?" He slid the card across the table. "Your father, Tom Mitchell, ran a metalwork shop off Indian School Road back in the 90s. Taught me everything I know about fabrication before he passed. Best man I ever knew." The diner seemed to tilt sideways. Her father, dead for 15 years, gone before Emma was born, before everything fell apart. Sarah gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles white. "My father never mentioned anyone from a motorcycle club." The biker's expression softened in a way that transformed his entire face. He looked less like the intimidating figure from the pharmacy and more like someone carrying old memories that still mattered. "Your dad did not care about the patches or the reputation. I was 19, angry at the world, fresh out of juvie with nowhere to go. Everyone else saw a lost cause. Tom saw someone who needed a trade and a second chance. He let me sweep floors in his shop, then taught me to weld, to shape metal, to create something instead of destroy it." He took another sip of coffee, his eyes distant. "Saved my life. When he got sick, I was there at the hospital. He made me promise something. Said if I ever met his daughter Sarah, I should tell her she had her mother's strength and his stubborn pride. Said those would either save her or break her, depending on which one she listened to." Sarah felt tears burning behind her eyes but refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of the lunch crowd and her manager, who was already watching the interaction nervously from behind the counter. "Why did you never reach out before? Tried to find you after he passed. You had moved to Scottsdale, changed your number. Figured you did not want anything to do with your dad's old world. Then I saw you Thursday night, heard you say your name to the pharmacist, saw that little girl. She has Tom's eyes." Sarah sank into the booth across from him, protocol and professionalism abandoned. Her father, this stranger knew her father, had been touched by his kindness the same way she had been raised by it. The biker, who finally introduced himself as Marcus Hayes, continued. "I run a custom motorcycle shop now. Built it from what your dad taught me. Business is good. Real good. And I need someone who understands marketing, someone who can help me expand, manage the books, handle the online presence. Your dad told me you went to college for business." Sarah's mind raced. This could not be real. Things like this did not happen to people like her, people who counted pennies and worked double shifts and accepted charity from strangers. "I have not done marketing work in 3 years. I do not know if I even remember." Marcus slid a piece of paper across the table. A number was written on it. $45,000 a year, health insurance included, flexible hours so you can be there for your kid. Start Monday if you want it. The diner noise faded to white static. That salary was more than she made in 18 months at the Desert Rose. Health insurance meant Emma could see a real doctor, not just the free clinic. Flexible hours meant being present for school pickups and sick days and all the small moments she had been missing. "Why would you do this for me?" Marcus stood, dropped a 20 on the table for a $5 coffee. "Because your father did it for me. And because that little girl deserves better than watching her mom count pennies for medicine." Sarah started at Hayes Custom Motorcycles the following Monday. The shop sat on the outskirts of Phoenix, a sprawling warehouse filled with gleaming chrome, the smell of metal and oil, and the constant sound of tools shaping raw materials into art. Marcus had not exaggerated about the business. Orders came from across the country, custom builds for collectors and enthusiasts, willing to pay premium prices for craftsmanship. But the operation was chaotic, paperwork scattered, no real system for tracking inventory or managing the growing customer base. Sarah threw herself into the work with an intensity she had forgotten she possessed. She rebuilt the filing system, created spreadsheets for inventory management, launched a professional website showcasing Marcus's custom designs. Within 2 weeks, she had streamlined operations enough that Marcus could focus on what he did best: creating. Emma thrived too. The health insurance meant a real pediatrician who caught an underlying asthma condition that explained the recurring infections. Proper treatment and inhaler regular checkups. Simple things that transformed everything. For the first time in 3 years, Sarah could breathe. 3 months into the job, Sarah was working late on a marketing campaign when Marcus emerged from the workshop, wiping grease from his hands. "Got something to show you." He led her to the back corner where a tarp covered something large. With surprising gentleness for such massive hands, Marcus pulled the covering away. Underneath sat a custom motorcycle, but not like the others in the shop. This one was smaller, elegant, painted deep blue with silver accents. Along the fuel tank, carefully airbrushed, were words: "Mitchell's Legacy." "Your dad's signature design," Marcus said quietly. He always wanted to build one like this but never got the chance. Figured it was time someone finished what he started. Sarah ran her fingers along the smooth metal, seeing her father in every curve and line. The stubborn pride Marcus had mentioned, the strength her mother had given her, all of it flowing through 3 generations now. "I want you to have a stake in this business," Marcus continued. 20% equity. "You have turned this place around. Your dad would be proud. Hell, I am proud." The offer hung in the air between them, weighted with meaning beyond money. This was family, the kind you choose, the kind built on second chances and paid forward through generations. Sarah accepted. By Christmas, Hayes Custom Motorcycles had doubled its revenue. Sarah had hired 2 administrative staff and was negotiating a feature in a major motorcycle magazine. Emma, healthy and happy, spent afternoons after school drawing designs in the office, already showing signs of her grandfather's creative eye. On Christmas Eve, Marcus closed the shop early. He handed Sarah an envelope. Inside it a photograph she had never seen. Her father, 20 years younger, standing next to a teenage Marcus in front of the original metalwork shop. Both were smiling, covered in metal shavings, creating something together. "Family is not just blood," Marcus said. "It is who shows up. Your dad showed up for me. I am showing up for you." 2 years later, Sarah stood in front of Hayes Custom Motorcycles, but the sign above the door now read differently. Mitchell Hayes Custom Motorcycles. Equal partners. Equal legacy. The business had grown beyond anything she could have imagined that desperate night at the pharmacy. They had opened a second location in Tucson, hired 15 employees, and their custom builds were featured in magazines across the country. Sarah had even been invited to speak at a small business conference about turning crisis into opportunity. But the real transformation was not measured in revenue or recognition. Emma, now 9 years old, sat at Sarah's old desk doing homework, her asthma well managed, her cheeks full of color and life. She had started taking welding classes with Marcus on weekends, her small hands already learning to shape metal under his patient guidance. The same hands that had once trembled with fever now created sparks and art. Sarah had moved them into a small house in a decent neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but it had a yard where Emma could play and a garage where Sarah had started learning to ride the motorcycle Marcus had built in her father's memory. Every Sunday, they visited her father's grave, and Sarah told him about the week, about Emma's progress, about the business, about the life that had bloomed from those 9 cents of grace. Marcus had become Uncle Marcus to Emma, teaching her not just metalwork but the philosophy her grandfather had taught him. Everyone deserves a second chance, kindness costs nothing, and the measure of a person is not where they start but what they build with what they are given. The pharmacy incident felt like a lifetime ago, yet Sarah thought about it often. Not with shame anymore, but with gratitude. Those 9 cents had been a doorway, and the man who provided them had been a bridge back to her father, back to herself, back to a future she had stopped believing was possible. Last month, Sarah had started a small fund at the same Walgreens, working with Linda the pharmacist. When someone came up short for medicine, the fund covered it. No questions asked. No shame attached. Just help when it was needed most. She called it Tom's Promise, and she funded it with a portion of her earnings each month. Because she remembered. She would always remember what it felt like to be 9 cents short, to feel the weight of failure as a mother, to accept help from a stranger who saw past the desperation to the person underneath. Marcus still rode with the Hells Angels on weekends, his patches and leather vest unchanged. But he also mentored young people at the shop, offering the same chance Tom Mitchell had given him decades ago. The cycle continued, kindness multiplying across generations. As Sarah locked up the shop that evening, Emma running ahead to the car, she thought about that Thursday night and smiled. Sometimes salvation comes in the most unexpected packages. Sometimes angels wear leather and chains. Sometimes 9 cents changes everything. Thank you so much for staying with Sarah's story until the end. If this touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment below telling us what moment hit you hardest, and let us know what kind of stories you want to see next. Remember, every story of struggle has the potential for transformation. See you in the next one.